Before technology and patriarchy ended our 2 million years of prehistoric peace, documented by every skeleton unearthed lacking any hacks or cuts from the thousands of available lethal big game hunting weapons, the only government was men and women cooperating with each other and the few neighboring families. Then suddenly our discovery of agriculture and creation of villages, commerce, coin, and land ownership lured men to endlessly seek new prizes or prey of technology with male-only hunting parties. Before the first of thousands of tyrannies and tens of thousands of wars to follow, hunting law of the jungle aside, family law was structured around loving maternal ethics. Killing weapons were for animal flesh, not hated human victims. Physical and emotional abuse would have caused depression and reduced life expectancy and reproduction among tiny groups of already desperately endangered people, so even the weak were given basic allowance and encouragement. The occasional bully's mate and kids did poorly, so his genes remained in the small minority only. Then along came farms, commerce, and organized leadership, suddenly thousands of war-splintered skeletons. Men saw new hunting prey, land, money, and attractive technologies, so we ditched the women for every foray outside the hut or cave. Then, for the next 10,000 years, we enforced our same evil design. Town, city, and national commanders point spears and collect taxes, including extra for enforcement and war, and never stop collecting bribes from weaponeers and other merchants arranging to corner the rich government market. The exact opposite of family law is always enforced. Foreigners, and our citizens too, are murdered without limit to inflate the generals/leaders' power, or to satisfy emotions and habits of aggression. For these purposes, tyranny or slavery remain essential. Respect and limited freedom are reserved for the useful allied elites who need to be kept happy. But abuse and neglect keep the lowly laboring in line. Subjugation papered over conveniently with soothing, patriotic public relations. Prosperous, conquering, unusually aggressive bullies, or winners, keep multiplying genetically as their pampered families grow in size and health. You see, after battering the planet all day, he calms down at home. 99% of the remaining publicly, ethically beautiful wait for an almighty God to illuminate those hearts of darkness. Waiting for 10,000 thermonuclear flashes at this point. But way under 1% of us seriously argue to stop the money and hardware behind foreign and civil warring. To specifically stop our genocidal civilian slaughter weaponeering, campaign gift bribery, and economically backbreaking, overtaxing, deficit spending. In plain English, almost nobody demands that we stop the theft and murder lying profiteers claim is legal. The 99% do contentedly pay to each of 180 governments refusing to obey their treaty, requiring them to work for nuclear disarmament, pay for cooperation with or supply of world-attacking armies crowned with 30,000 nuclear metropolis blaster roasters, inviting Earth to aim same at us. Every year, now, briberies billions, deficits trillions, and slaughters millions grow in triple tandem. The bribes mostly go for TV propaganda, multiples of poor challengers to win over 95% of incumbents' elections. Nothing elective about that. All financially weaker who don't pay to play are crushed in voice and freedom, as are most ideas and dollars needed for general prosperity and peace. Only so directed by Earth's few uncorrupted free nations, we are instead robbed for private favor and world war. Many constitutions hopefully try to inspire and reinstitute family and divine law, including voters' right to refuse aggressive war, and enshrinement of full protection and equality for all us weaklings who can't just win out with bucks, bullets, and bombs. But then executives and legislators always conspire to drive Mack trucks through our enumerated rights in their desperation to build fully contradictory, personal, patriarchal, financial, and military power. Judges too lazy to read their own agenda and homework, the Constitution and Bill of Rights, neglect to overturn clearly unconstitutional laws that perpetuate bribery, crush freedom, equality, and the uncorrupted vote, and advance aggressive war and impending genocide and suicide. Even our supreme robes have taken to describing politician payoffs as free speech, as if such bribery did not destroy everyone's voices and rights, except for the ones who pay for even bigger public booty private returns. So just never mind the underprivileged masses' loss of safety, peace, prosperity, and freedom. Now, ain't this just the winners? Selective, evil, selfish, violent, murdering, lying, thieving, patriarchal, tyrannical heaven. Well, if you and I have anything to do with it, in a fairly short time, a federal judge is going to complain to his colleague. That's the third lawsuit challenging private campaign cash this month. Apoplectic citizens are blowing up my email and mailbox. You know, Joe, I was forced to actually read the damn Constitution recently. I found 20 different sections insisting that any new laws attempting to destroy equal voice and rights of the power challenged, or wrecking our common defense and general welfare, to instead succor an oligarchy of the financially, technologically, and militarily muscular, we are charged with overturning, and steadily, until the bozos have no other option but to respect, protect, and take care of all of us for a change. Until they learn to make constitutional law right out of the chute. So tell me, Joe, just when, since Brown versus the Board of Education, have we actually done our frickin' jobs? I read a little history, too. Ever since men took over, piled up bribes and weapons, and decided everything for their inferiors, we've been crushing and killing each other. Now, you wouldn't think that people would ever wake up after 10,000 years of this, but in 2013, 8 different Mideast countries suddenly revolted via computer to the streets against their vicious tyrannies. Now, Americans are bent in increasing numbers on forcing us to send rather revolutionary and shockingly constitutional justice, rights, equality, and peace cases up to the Supreme Court. Government legal apologists fighting them every step of the way. Are the people about to force the Supreme Court to halt executive, legislative, and electoral criminal conduct? By teaching us our jobs? Government for 10,000 years has built tyranny from the top down and bottom up with 100% unbroken success. But now is government about to be coerced by the people into toppling twisted hunting instinct and restoring women's, families, and God's laws of love? Not to mention humanity's longest, best, happiest future? I'd say, no way. Except for what some sad-eyed, raw-boned country lawyer predicted at Gettysburg, that eventually the little folks would have to take over from the big shots. How did he put it? So that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. I wonder if old Abe realized that the final death of democracy would then end every one of us too. Commendable attempts at democracy mostly fail because constitutions did not initially prohibit, get amended, or properly interpreted and enforced to halt private campaign caches, equality, peace, and economy-wrecking commercial takeover of governments. And because judges failed to notice or intervene when framers' ultimate guarantee of common defense and protection from invasion is savaged by an uncommon offense inviting universal death. From the BC slavedoms to the 21st century republics, hyper-aggressive men compete for offices structured as cornucopias of gold and guns, ever expanded by theft from and murder of enemies and civilians alike. Dear God, why has no one even imagined that the savages, genetic or trained, would have to scuttle back to private commercial killings? Once our public positions were legally limited to peaceful helping by normal, honest, kind, caring, generous, salary-only public servants. And God, since you know that our ethical and legal reforms fall ever further behind our techno-commercial military growth towards doomsday, why don't you make us sing out in the town square, not just in your churches? Framers of our American Revolution and Constitution knew and wrote that someday all three branches of our government might conspire to ignore such laws as Congress, not presidents, may authorize wars, and also savage our entire founders' directions to lift the weak to equal opportunity and voice with the strong. And they encouraged us in these awful but not unanticipated events to throw out the bums using muskets if necessary. But oops, it's thousands of dollars against trillions and handguns against stealth bombers and H-bomb missiles. But don't give up. Instead, pester federal judges into seriously shaming our Supreme Court into its constitutional duty. The male hunters of our carnivorous human species, upon introduction to agricultural and commercial technology and government, confused instincts for dominating, taking, and killing animal prey to begin dominating, stealing from, and killing human prey. Patriarchs twisted government to their survival morphed to acquisition needs. Ever more financial, industrial, and military power permanently escalated organized murder, culminating in World Wars I, II, and soon III. A fascinating new study showed men to deliberately inflict pain and harm for profit in far higher percentages than women, who mostly reject such evil with ethical clarity and condemnation. I believe that this study shows just what history confirms, that men paired with women are loving leaders, but alone or in groups, as patriarchs seeking advantage would trample their mothers for another dollar or acre. Study designers asked both men and women, would you buy a house from someone who had expressed their hope, for cultural and historic reasons, that it remain a private home, while you kept quiet about your plan to level it for a commercial project? And would you reformulate your hot-selling drug as pharmaceutical company boss with a much cheaper and less effective main ingredient, keeping high price and boastful advertising unchanged? In both cases, too many men answered, hell yes, there's big bucks to be made. Most of the women replied, you're joking, that's evil. Harming people for money is mercenary. Of course, we all knew that this study would turn out just like our 2-million-year heavenly matriarchy and that 10,000-year hellish patriarchy, right? Us boys, we're sweeties in wives' and families' laps. But in male government and army hunting packs, we steal and kill without compunction or limit. From the universe's likely frequent civilization spawning attempts, astronomers believe that perhaps 1 million advanced to our technology. But we hear from not one because, with few exceptions, they roasted each other exactly as we're fixin' to do. The few survivors probably made women politicians and men domestics. Have you heard of anecdotal studies? I've interviewed several hundred people who all commented sadly about crony corruption, but not one thought of outlawing their greenbacks to politician lackeys below and above the table. The same bunch knew that Earth awaits nuclear fire and ice, but casually left it to the power-mad, bought-off leaders to pretend negotiating safety with tiny reductions and understated escalations. We devote all to majestic and powerful family and work lives, but our character and personalities as public citizens, even to protect our lives, wives, and children from external destruction, make sheep and lemmings seem assertive and independent. I repeat, of 1 million not-so-alien worlds, all but a few shot from splitting an atom to incinerating their worlds in a century or so, I blink. Confused male hunters driving every train wreck. The few surviving planets learn to ban the bomb, keep business out of government, and promoted women back to 51% power players. But can we avoid eunuchs fawning below Amazons, please? Those divine and human biological laws of survival, equality, benefit, and love I briefly described, always ascendant through prehistory, thanks to minimal technology and no political, commercial, military power structure schemes, sustained family law, love and law of our tiny cave and field clans. Have you noticed that my reforms simply reinforce those natural laws of peace, equality, and love that constitutions also demand, but commercial military governments have always conspired to destroy? And humanity's failure to regulate and then destroy technologies that will kill all of us billions is glaring. My speeches go on to make strong legal and survival cases for halting business power over governments, ending financial rigging of elections and bribery of leaders, and slashing weapons, manufacturing down to safe, mutual, minimal public defenses. As a nurse, I observe and apply new food, drug, and machine technologies to save and improve countless lives. But other foods, drugs, and machines destroy hundreds of millions of us with circulatory, metabolic diseases of diet, inactivity, and brain-body toxic addictions. Many new medical treatments enhance and save lives, but vegetative life support tube feeding only tortures millions of survivors of our lifestyle stroke, heart attack, and diabetic diseases. Some laws have furthered rights and freedoms, but others only support corruption, tyranny, and ever more unsurvivable debt and war. All commercial, political, and military evil I have described twist certain public laws for the never-sated power edicts against divine and human laws of love, justice, and happiness. Out of 8 billion souls, shouldn't you be the second little person to keep insisting on taking government away from the power conspirators with the few solid new laws needed to make indestructible technology nevertheless subservient to love, given just legal wings of modern flight? Each essential family law of love I propose for national governments in international agreement was designed, just like rational recovery from drug addiction, to block and defeat laissez-faire, corrupt, addictive, instinct-twisted, lethal pleasure. Then, just as in loving families and for recovering addicts like me, leaders' ethical responsibility to citizens can only continue to be realized with ironclad rules and daily practice. When government promotes by law equality, health, love, and peace instead of corruption, tyranny, and the freedom to profit from wars of conquest and genocide, every one of the scourges and final perils I described, from our abusive history to our designed malignant future folly, will steadily fade into his story.